But you have something available to you that few others do. You have the power to actually sway the vote. The Conservatives and the Bloc were going to vote against. If you added your party's votes to that, the budget would be defeated, the government would go down, and that would be in parallel to how you describe this government. You have said Justin Trudeau is a failed leader who is bad for Canada, and yet you're not willing to actually vote in that manner. You are keeping them in power despite your concerns, despite saying something like that.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. What can we say about Vassy Kapelos and her ability to interview and ask the tough questions, at least as a government-paid prostitute, I guess, as we could call it. Now, I'm going to go a little easy on that term around her because lately she's been showing that, well, she understands the writing that's on the wall. And for quite some time, she's been willing to ask the tough questions that other outlets are not permitted to. And it's definitely showing her journalistic integrity as she continues with these interviews. Now, that's not to say that all of her interviews have been completely biased. I mean, she's shown multiple times that she kind of flip-flops, but for the most part, she holds people accountable. And I want to talk about a very interesting video today, or an interesting interview she's done with Jagmeet Singh in regards to the budget. Now, word has come down that Jagmeet finally announced he's going to support the Liberal budget. We all knew this was going to happen. We all knew from day one that he was either going to hold it like a carrot on a stick over Trudeau, or of course he'd bend down and kiss the shoes of Justin Trudeau and say that, yeah, no problem, I'll back the budget. It's no big deal. In case which he's done here. He didn't really hold anything to account. And of course, Vassy's sitting down to kind of ask him what's going on. And I want to get into this interview and then also give my 2 cents as to what's going on with Jagmeet here. Fair warning, folks, a lot of word salad here, but boy, it's fun to watch Jagmeet squirm. If you watch the intro of this video, Vassy, of course, pulling no punches on Jagmeet Singh. Let's get into it.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh there ending speculation and officially announcing that his party will support the federal budget, the first vote on which is expected later today. It's an announcement the leader made on the same day the Canada Dental Care Plan officially launched, as you heard in my interview with Minister Holland a few moments ago, a key pillar of the NDP's supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, is here live in studio now to talk more about that. Hi, Mr. Singh. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I appreciate you making the time. Why did you wait 2 weeks to say you support the budget when nothing tangibly changed in the interim?
Well, first off, we wanted to show that we were serious about looking at the budget to make sure what we had fought for was actually there. We want to confirm the things that we secured in the budget, like the school food program, the pharmacare, the dental care, and diabetes medication and device coverage, as well as the Renters Protection Fund. So when we were briefed about it, when we read it, we wanted to make sure that what we had fought for was actually showing up in the budget, and we were confident that that's there. Then we were concerned about certain things, and I raised those concerns, the disability benefit not being enough. And really, that clawbacks were particularly concerning to us. It could put a person living with disabilities in a worse off position, potentially. And that.
So if you watched our other videos this week, you'll see that we pointed out, or I pointed out, rather, I always say we like a community, but I pointed out that ideally, $6 a day is what's been offered to those on disability, up to $2,400 a year tax-free, which obviously is not enough. It's not enough to support those who are disabled, yet they want to put billions and billions of dollars into virtue signaling programs, tampons and bathrooms. This dental care program, which essentially doesn't really help anybody except the very elderly. I mean, it's Jagmeet Singh making it sound like he had something to do with the budget itself, or that the Liberals had to appease the NDP in order to get this budget through. Of course, it's laughable at best. We all know Jagmeet Singh just kind of cowered in the corner like he usually does. Let's continue. He's done nothing here. Let's go on.
That's completely wrong. And I raised that with the Prime Minister directly, and I said, this is wrong and this can't happen. And there was an openness to addressing those concerns. In addition, I raised concerns about the Jordan's principle not being met. And that's another area where I'm really concerned about. The federal government made a commitment that if an Indigenous child needs care, that the care should be delivered first, jurisdiction worked out afterwards.
This is usual trigger words that we see, and this is the kind of stuff we're going to see throughout this interview, is that Jagmeet Singh, of course, using the finer points that left-leaning parties typically do with their trigger words in terms of equity, inclusion, diversity. Of course, he has to bring up Indigenous. Oh, it has to be about Indigenous. Now, don't get me wrong, the Indigenous do get a bum rap when it comes to clean drinking water, when it comes to a lot of the services they've been promised that they're not getting from this government. And we can maybe get into that at a later date. But of course, he uses this to say, well, I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about that. The big question that's coming up that, again, was in the intro of this video, if you're so disappointed, Jagmeet Singh, why not just call an election? Well, we all know why. He's worried about that pension of his and claiming his golden ticket to retirement, but hey, let's continue.
Well, the federal government's missing that requirement almost 70% of the time, which is a very serious concern. So I raised that with the Prime Minister, and I heard some openness to addressing that. After hearing those concerns being addressed, or an openness to addressing them, I've said now we are prepared to support.
So your support is essentially contingent on an openness from the government? Like, there are lots of things the government has appeared open to which it has not followed through on. Particularly, let's take the example of the disability benefit. It is horrifyingly low, according to advocates, right? $200 a month when they set expectations that it would bring people out of poverty. How can you support a budget that does that just because the Prime Minister sounds open to addressing a concern?
Well,
now, before Jagmeet gets into this, one thing I want to touch on and where I have an issue with this is that, again, Vashi hits it on the head. $2,400 a year that was supposed to be boosted to something that was going to bring those on low-income support or disability out of poverty. In today's world, people who have an average living, a middle-class living, can't afford to pay their bills. They're living check to check. I actually had viewers who said that they have combined incomes of $150,000 a year that are still living check to check with today's costs of living when it comes to their car payments, insurance, mortgage, utilities, all the necessities that the average person, and when I say necessities, I understand you don't have to buy a car, you don't have to have a cell phone, but in today's world, you kind of need transportation, and public transit doesn't work as well as it should. The crime rates are escalating, so you usually don't want to be on public transit. There's many caveats to really instigate why one may deem it necessary over the other, and I'm not really here to argue that. But the fact of the matter is, $200 a week, or $200 a month, I apologize, is not enough to boost people out of poverty, yet Justin Trudeau will house illegal migrants in hotel rooms to the tune of over $100 million who want to apply for asylum in this country. It's crazy to think that asylum seekers get better benefits than Canada's disabled.
Let's be clear. We agree that with the advocates, if this was an NDP government, we wouldn't allow for this to happen. We would never done this. This is what the Liberals have done. And we are going to continue to attack them, put pressure on them to improve this. They have not shown a willingness to improve the amount, and we think they're wrong. And so we'll continue to mount pressure on them. We'll continue to raise our concerns. We'll continue to fight back. Often with this government, what we've seen is right now, dental care is a great example. It's being rolled out right now. There were many times on this journey where the Liberals said no. They voted against it twice in the past. They said it couldn't happen. They couldn't deliver it. Now seniors are receiving this care. This is testament to New Democrats persevering, fighting for people, and delivering. Similarly, with the disability benefit, we fought for that. Now, the Liberals have failed. They haven't delivered what was expected. Like you put it, the advocates have said this is not what we wanted. And on top of that, the advocates said their criteria in terms of eligibility said, please, at a minimum, don't make it based on the disability tax credit. And that's exactly what the Liberals did. So we're concerned about that. We think that's a big problem. And we've addressed that. I've raised that directly with the Prime Minister, and I expect to see solutions.
But you have something available to you that few others do. You have the power to actually sway the vote. The Conservatives and the Bloc were going to vote against. If you added your party's votes to that, the budget would be defeated, the government would go down, and that would be in parallel to how you describe this government. You have said Justin Trudeau is a failed leader who is bad for Canada, and yet you're not willing to actually vote in that manner. You are keeping them in power despite your concerns, despite saying something like that.
Well, the facts are Canadians chose him as Prime Minister. What we're doing is using our power to get the most we can for people. And if we voted against the budget, it would be voting against free birth control for women, free diabetes medication and devices, the child care, the dental care, the Renters Protection Fund, the protection for kids or the support for kids in school to get a nutritious meal. Those are things that we're going to support. We fought for those. We want those to move forward.
One thing that Jagmeet brings up here that I really want to hammer down is that a lot of the times the left-leaning boogeymen will try to hammer down on the fact that Pierre Poilievre is supposedly going to cut all of these things, that he's going to get rid of these things, and that it's going to make people's lives more difficult. But the reality is that if Pierre were to cut the spending that goes into these programs that essentially don't really do anything for those involved, then what happens is his life becomes more affordable, and people who are needing the child care, people who are needing the dental benefit, people who are needing all these things that Jagmeet Singh wants to tout around about free birth control, they can afford to get those things because they're not priced out of it in their day-to-day lives. That's the issue that we're seeing here, is that they constantly keep using wedge issues to try and prop up their bananas propaganda in order for people to buy in and say, oh, this is beneficial. I can get free birth control. I've got newsflash for you. You used to be able to get birth control for very cheap. It is not expensive. And if it's something that you need, I really don't see the problem with having to buy it yourself. It's a choice. I'd like it if people gave me lots of things for free under the government, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're supposed to work hard, pay into a system, and then reap the benefits of policy that works in our favor. Jagmeet Singh, of course, doesn't want to talk about the great things Pierre Poilievre's going to do. He just wants to talk about how these deals that apparently are going to go nowhere, by the way, are essentially beneficial to Canadians.
Pierre Poilievre is against those things. He said right off the top he would be removing the dental care program for seniors, despite having dental care paid for with a publicly funded program for most of his adult life. He would take away the diabetes medication and the devices coverage, which we know is not only going to improve the life of people, save them money, but improve our healthcare system. So that's the difference between us and Conservatives. We want this to move ahead, but we've raised some concerns and we're going to fight to make sure that those are addressed.
But how do you reconcile telling Canadians on one hand, Justin Trudeau is a failed leader? That's your words. A failed leader who is bad for Canada. And on the other hand, essentially just telling them right now, Pierre Poilievre, I think, would be worse, so I'm going to just support the budget and not make sure that they get toppled.
Well, that's not the frame at all. What I'm putting forward is that on their own, the Liberals would have done none of this. They wouldn't have done these things. They are absolutely failed in terms of what they've achieved in the past number of years. We have forced them to do in 2 years significant things for people. The pharmacare, the childcare legislation, the dental care, these are things we forced them to do. If we were not there, they wouldn't have done them. And we've noticed they don't have the urgency to respond to people's needs. When we talk about grocery prices, they allowed grocery prices to exceed general inflation for 2 years before then they started making announcements and still have not yet taken concrete action until we forced them to bring in things like improvements to the Competition Bureau, more strings attached or more teeth attached to legislation to give more power.
Do you think it's you that forced them or public outcry that forced them?
Oh, we absolutely forced them. There's no question about it. Their approach was, on their own, was to call the CEOs and ask them nicely to lower their prices. And then Champagne then said, come out and check out. Minister Champagne said, look at flyers, grocery flyers. Prices are coming down. And then said, you know what, I actually don't know if they're coming down.
Okay, I'm going to stop the three-ring circus right there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to play this entire interview because I'm going to spare you from having to listen to this moronic person any longer. I'm going to lay it out flat to you. Jagmeet Singh puffing out his chest saying, oh no, this isn't public outcry. We made the Liberals do this. I'm going to tell you something. Jagmeet Singh is that one guy in the corner who's maybe 3.5 feet tall as a kid versus a bunch of 5 feet children who wants to say that he's stronger and better than all of them. At the end of the day, the 5-foot kid is going to step down on him, and that's what the Liberals are essentially doing. You got to understand that these benefits that they're talking about that Jagmeet forced the Liberals to do is nothing more than the Liberals appeasing his needs on a very thin margin in order to keep him from calling an election, allowing them thus to continue their scandals, to continue screwing over this country until they're out of office, and also for Jagmeet Singh to continue mulling along his position in order to gain his golden pension. This has nothing to do with Canadians. It never has. It never will be. And even his statement about grocery prices, I know He likes to tout those things so much. If he was really concerned about Canadians having issues with grocery prices, instead of his brother who's lobbying for Metro Inc., he would call an election. All of this, and one of the things that doesn't get pointed out in the rest of this interview is all of these problems Jagmeet Singh is talking about goes away if you simply call an election. But we all know he doesn't have the stones to do it. He doesn't care about Canadians. He doesn't care about doing anything. He works for the World Economic Forum, and this is all part of the plan, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Did Vashi size up Jagmeet Singh, and at least the way I think she did? It's about time somebody starts calling him out, asking why aren't you calling an election? Let me know if you think Jagmeet Singh forced the Liberals to do anything. And while you're at it, if this video has earned your subscription, make sure to hit that button, turn on your bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central for Friday Night Fringe, where we talk about things like this, and we also have some back and forth with our community. It's always great to see you guys there and hear what you have to say outside of making these bonkers videos about the government. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.